Hey everyone, Gill Gross here post-match. Jannik Sinner versus Daniil Medvedev, Wimbledon 2024 quarterfinal. If you're not here for spoilers, click off the video. Medvedev with his best ever win at Wimbledon. He beats world number one Jannik Sinner in 5 sets, snapping a 4-match losing streak in the head-to-head against Jannik and advancing to the semis where he will rematch Carlos Alcaraz. What a fascinating match this was. I always love it when these two play, because the tactics and the dynamics, they're so vivid. The head-to-head is just the gift that keeps on giving. Even the blowouts are interesting and exciting, in my opinion. This was no blowout, an epic 5-set. Well, am I overusing the word epic? I thought the first set was one of the highest quality sets I've seen in a long time. And then after that, there was a little bit more give and take on both sides. All right, we'll leave it there. I want to talk about Medvedev's performance. Then I'll go through the match, kind of chronological, because there were a lot of twists and turns. You got to stay for the end, though, because we're going to have a very honest Jannik Sinner conversation, just taking stock of where he's at as a player, where he stands, what the places where he can improve, what they are. Because for a lot of this year, I've been saying, I'm not really sure. Just give me some time to answer this question. I'm ready to answer the question. I just needed him to lose some matches. It was always going to happen. It's happened. Now I can answer that question at the end. First, Daniil Medvedev. The adaptations that he's made finally paying off. And I've been quite annoyed with some suggestions that Medvedev is stuck in the mud or that he's stubborn. He won't change his ways. He's not getting better. Because that's not the Medvedev that I've been seeing the last 2 years. I've been seeing a Medvedev who has surpassed my expectations about some of the changes that he's made in his game. And we saw that very vividly at the Australian Open. And in Australia, I said that some of the things that he showed, some of the things that he did, had me rethinking his potential as a player, rethinking what his ceiling is. Because clearly, as he ages and as he goes towards that 30 mark, and as rivals, very skilled rivals, have kind of figured out the best ways to play him, Daniil has recognized that he needs to do certain things differently, he needs to do certain things better, and sometimes when you make those changes, you don't get the immediate gratification. Because when he tried to do these things against Sinner in Miami, it was ugly. And this time, he did exactly what I said he needed to do, even if, unfortunately, I wasn't sure that he was going to be able to do it. He did exactly what I said he needed to do, which is find an absolutely incredible balance between the new, more aggressive adaptations that he's been implementing in his game while preserving and maintaining his strengths as a player. What are his main strengths as a player? Consistency and physicality. Can he incorporate the aggressive tools while maintaining the consistency and the physicality? That's what he was able to do in this match brilliantly. So what are these adaptations? Improved effectiveness with a close return position. It is something that he has tried over the years, but he has often not executed it well. He's been beaten by the body serve. He hasn't been able to get as many returns in play. This was the best I've ever seen him return from closer to the baseline. And why? Because I think he's gotten his reps in. He's done it enough now. He's got more, and we saw it at times in Australia as well. Is what I'm going for here. But he does it really well from start to finish in this match. Selective net rushing. How about this? This wasn't on my bingo card. How about Medvedev coming forward more than Sinner in this match? How about Medvedev being 27 for 41 at the net, 66%, 13 more net points than Sinner? 13 more. What about ground stroke aggression? How about this for a shocking stat? Ground stroke winners. Take away aces, take away volleys, take away overheads. Ground stroke winners, 37-18 Medvedev. Now, Sinner did force more errors, So if we combine that, forced errors and winners, we'll call it finishes. Finishes, 44-33, Medvedev. Ball and player tracking AI has Medvedev 25% in attack for the match, Sinner 23% in attack for the match. I thought Medvedev was hitting into safe targets with a lot of pace from the ground, being very selective with when to change direction and when to attack. But when doing so, he wasn't really taking on too much risk because he was in good position to attack. He had done the hard work with his cross-court trading. He had opened up some court, and he was willing to extend the rallies and to continue to move Sinner around. So what was the effect of all of these changes? Closer return, more net rushing, more baseline aggression. I don't think the effect was that he hit Sinner off the court, winners left and right, blowing him away. No, to me, that's not what happened in this match. I think the result of Medvedev's aggression was to stunt Sinner's offensive output. Jannik couldn't get his power game going consistently. He couldn't get his creativity going consistently. I thought this was going to be a match where Sinner was at the net all the time. I thought it was going to look a lot like it did in Beijing, with some serve and volley and tons of net approaches off of the +1 and a lot of drop shots and sharp angles and a lot of variation in the point construction. I didn't see that at all from Jannik, especially early, and we'll get to when that changed. But early on, I saw no serve and volley. I saw no drop shots. I saw no slicing. I didn't see him getting in much. I saw a linear baseline game from Sinner. The one thing he was doing to try to create was a lot of change of directions, a lot of down the line off of both wings. But he executed that with very mixed results. Remember, Medvedev was bringing a lot of pace, so Sinner sometimes would have trouble timing these changes of directions, especially because he wasn't being all that selective with it. So sometimes he'd catch it late and he'd miss. Sometimes he'd catch it a little early. It would bleed towards the middle and he would get counterattacked. First set was mega quality, as I mentioned. 0 break points, close to perfect tennis in my opinion. Even though Sinner was playing these long rallies, they looked like very Medvedev. They looked very Medvedev-like rallies. The way the first set was being played, great quality. I mean, fantastic to watch, but on Medvedev's terms. The kind of tennis Daniil wants to play. However, as we've learned, Sinner can play that game too. Sinner can play long baseline rallies. Jannik can play a kind of an east-west baseline game where they're kind of just moving side to side and they're trading blows off the ground. Jannik can do that with Daniil. So it goes to a tiebreak. And once they hit a tiebreak, the quality does dip. There's more mistakes from both. Medvedev has a set point. He misses back-to-back +1 forehands. And that's where I'm kind of thinking, all right, well, certainly nerves played a part there, but also that is Daniil's ground stroke aggression and the fact that he needs to be proactive. That is kind of the trade-off, again, coming to the surface. The trade-off of upping the ground stroke speeds, making more errors. So Medvedev makes back-to-back +1 forehand errors. He also double faults twice in the breaker, including once on set point. So he makes more mistakes in this tiebreak. Sinner wins the first set. If Medvedev lost this match, by the way, we'd be talking more about the frailty of his second serve. We're not going to talk about that, though, because he won. Sinner wins the first set, but at what cost? At what cost? I've talked about this over the years with Daniil. There is a physical car crash effect. A car crash effect where sometimes you play a set with Medvedev, and especially you see this early in the early rounds at majors all the time. And it's, okay, you can hang with him. You can grind with him from the back of the court for a set. You can do it for an hour and a half. Can you stay there? Can you continue at that energy rate? Can you continue to live with him in that world? And oftentimes you see a crash. So I always give Medvedev a lot of credit when opponents kind of lose their fitness against him, because I've seen Daniil do it to so many players. And at that point, a lot of it is Daniil. He is, in my opinion, and this is the last several years I've felt this way, he is physically the most difficult player to play against in the world, bar none. He is the trench master. I mean, Novak can be tough, but Novak actually is at a point where he likes to put you out of your misery real fast. Come forward, finish a volley. Like Novak doesn't want to make you suffer all that much because he'd rather finish the points quickly. So I think it's Medvedev. Anyway, what happens in the second set? Sinner breaks down. Like physically, he just loses all the energy. Now, I thought it was a drop in intensity at first, which it still was. But we find out later that the reason the intensity is dropping for Sinner is not because he hit kind of an emotional lull. It's because he hit a physical lull, and he's feeling dizzy and he's feeling unwell, and he goes off court and he takes a medical timeout, comes back, still doesn't look quite right. But you kind of felt like, okay, he's probably going to get a second wind. What I saw from Sinner over this stretch of the match where Medvedev kind of took control in the second set, what I mostly saw was Jannik changes of direction, going from acceptable to reckless, going overboard on them. So it got to a point where he was so desperate to kind of create damage, but still wasn't able to really do it with any kind of variety for some reason. So it was constantly trying to change. And Medvedev's balls, the quality was just too much. The pace was too much. So Sinner going for these changes of directions and missing far too often as a result. That's ultimately, to me, what happened here. Sorry, just trying to find my place here in the match. In the fourth set, we saw a creativity increase from Sinner. So I think it hit a point where Jannik started to become so tired in the legs and, when he wasn't feeling well, where he got desperate enough where he actually unlocked something. It was interesting. But Sinner's drop shot frequency, it tripled, like it quadrupled probably in the third set. The backhand slice started to come into play. That entered the toolkit. Sinner started to open up some much better angles as well. The fact that he really needed to stay on top of the points, it subconsciously, I think, it locked him into place. It got him to do the things that he should have been doing from the start, even when he had strong legs. And then there was also a physical bounce back from Sinner. Medvedev served for a 2-1 lead. He got tight. He missed. He made some errors. The momentum was with Sinner. Jannik had 2 set points to go up 2-1. Medvedev hit an ace on the first, and then Sinner had a great look at a backhand pass, and he buried it in the net on the second. That was one that you circle. If there's one point in the match that maybe Sinner wants back, it is that one, because he had all the momentum at this time. And then going into the tiebreak, Medvedev played really well off the ground, and Sinner's running forehand killed him in this tiebreak. On 3 of the last 6 points of the breaker, Jannik missed running forehands. They were all makeable. None of them were desperate defensive positions or anything like that. They were all makeable running forehands. And I was shocked that shot betrayed Jannik. At the same time, I'm shocked that it betrayed him to that extent. At the same time, if there's one ground stroke that's going to betray Jannik and get loose on him, it is probably his running forehand. So Medvedev takes a 2-1 lead. but the vibes are still good for Sinner heading into the fourth. His game is opened up a lot more. He gets the early break. Physically, he seems to have fully recovered, and he runs away with the fourth set. We go into a fifth, and it starts looking more like the first set, honestly, where the points were going long, and Sinner's legs were melting again. And Medvedev was running him a ton, being aggressive and consistent. So I want to stress one thing, because I know that I'm kind of ebbing and flowing here and going back and forth in terms of what Sinner's physical state is and how much creativity he's able to introduce in his game. I thought early on and late, I thought in the first set, and the second set, and the fifth set, a lot of the reasons why Sinner looked so uncreative, I think some of it was him, some of it was Daniil, some of it was Medvedev returning. It was the close return position, it was the ground stroke speed and the depth that just wasn't allowing Sinner to really feel like he could be inventive. He was more reactionary, he was defending more. Like, you can't be offensively creative unless you find yourself in better offensive positions. So I just want to stress that I think Medvedev's aggression, he was, I think, the more aggressive player in the fifth set, was a lot of why you had Sinner seemingly running right, left on the baseline, just kind of hitting linear ground strokes, which is fine, but that's where Medvedev wants to play the match. That's where it was being played in the fifth. Once again, I thought you saw Sinner really, really break down. So at 1-1, there was a huge missed opportunity for Jannik. Medvedev double faulted twice in this game, but Sinner's forehand was terrible. He made 3-4 forehand errors. Medvedev holds serve. Very next game at 1-2, Medvedev starts the game with the great backhand pass down the line. Slight slip from Sinner. He might have actually been able to make the volley if he didn't slip. Love 15, second serve Sinner, backhand rally. Sinner hits a bad trade. Medvedev goes down the line with his backhand, building the point. Sinner defends with his forehand, but it's right in the middle of the court, and Medvedev finishes it off with a forehand inside-out winner. That is a neutral rally where it's Daniil the one who ends up creating something with his ground stroke aggression. Take note of that. It was also a second serve. Love 30, another second serve. Medvedev moves up his position. Aggressive return position from Medvedev. Sinner goes hard and double faults at 116 miles per hour on the second serve. A little bit critical of this decision by Sinner. Medvedev is usually not someone who's going to really try to punish you on a second return, even if he's standing close. So I would say to Jannik, why go that big against a player who doesn't really threaten you to the fullest extent? But also, credit to Medvedev, return position. You get the reward for that. 30-40, backhand rally. Medvedev goes down the line. Great depth on this backhand down the line. He forces the error. Another makeable running forehand by Sinner, though, that he misses. He should have made this running forehand. This is the shot that was leaky, especially because Medvedev's backhand down the line caught fire in this match, after the first set especially. All right. Only other thing I want to say, because for the rest of the fifth set, it was pretty straightforward by Daniil. He was just, again, I don't think Sinner really, I don't think Jannik's legs were at the same level as Medvedev's legs. Daniil served well as well. And I just want to shout out his serving real quick. So I came into the match saying this needs to be his best serving performance since the Australian Open. He did not have a flashy serving performance, but here's what I'll say right now. The radar gun is not going to blow you away. It is pretty similar to where Daniil Medvedev has been recently. He is not a flamethrower like he was in 2021 or 2020. He's not. But one of the things that he said is he has been able, because the shoulder has been feeling better, he's been able to practice the serve more often, and I believe we are seeing a benefit from that in the spot serving. Medvedev has been much more precise on his serve, to my eyes, and I thought his spot serving was excellent in this match. I thought oftentimes maybe he wouldn't get an ace, but he'd get a service winner. Maybe he wouldn't get a service winner, but he'd get a very attackable first ball because he was he was placing the ball really well with his serve. And even when he would find aces, they were usually, especially on the ad side, they were usually great angles out wide, where it wasn't about the speed, it was about the placement. So I do think that Medvedev is serving a lot better right now. Let's get to Sinner, okay? Again, I kind of want to go over at this time where Jannik can be vulnerable, because I think it is now a lot more clear where Jannik Sinner can be defeated, where he can be vulnerable, where there is room for him to improve. Again, a question that I had been asked a lot end of last year, beginning of this year, and I was having trouble answering the question because he was winning so much. So first of all, this is another match where Sinner's legs looked shaky, especially late, but also it didn't take that long. And if you look at the bigger picture here, that's now 3 out of the last 4 majors. You have the 5-setter against Zverev at the US Open, where he struggled physically. Now, the rallies were grueling. The humidity and the heat was really high. But Zverev fared better than Sinner. Then you had Roland Garros about a month ago. I think everybody would agree that Alcaraz was moving way better in the 5th set than Sinner, that Jannik had slowed down as the match progressed, and Alcaraz, as he usually does, almost sped up. Okay. Now, in that case, we know that Sinner was sick in bed for 2 weeks, didn't pick up a racket, only got back on court 11 days before Roland Garros started. He had the hip thing. The preparation was compromised, so we were even coming into that tournament thinking, okay, he's at a little bit of a risk of a physical issue, a fitness issue. And that ended up happening, right? So, okay, at least there's kind of a reason there. This time, I don't know that there's much of a reason, especially as it seems like that medical timeout was just Sinner got dizzy. He got sick from exertion, it seems like, which happens. And I know that I think he's taking some heat for the medical timeout. I don't know why it took so long. I don't know. I don't know what happened in there, but maybe it was the physio. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the job of the physio and the chair umpire to collaborate on treatment. So when a player takes a medical timeout, the length of time that it takes is not up to the player. So don't blame Jannik that it took 11 minutes. In my opinion, it's not Jannik's fault that it took 11 minutes. At the same time, to me, it seems like the reason he got sick was as a result of the exertion and the fatigue that he was feeling. And that's why he got dizzy. I mean, maybe not. Maybe there's something underlying, but not that I know of at this time. So, 3 out of the last 4 majors, legs are shaky in a 5th set. He's back in the doghouse in the physical department. He is back in the doghouse. Now, he started his career with a ton of those concerns. If you asked me at the start of even last year, what are some of the biggest things that Sinner needs to work on? I would have said physical number 1, because I saw that he would usually weaken as tournaments went forward, and there were too many little small niggling injuries for Jannik that would take place. So I felt, okay, he needs to build his body up. He needs to be tougher and stronger. He needs to endure better. The reason why those things got brushed aside, at least momentarily, is because I saw him go toe-to-toe in Vienna with Daniil Medvedev, and I saw Medvedev kind of drop before Jannik when they were playing marathon rally after marathon rally after marathon rally, and Medvedev was the first to wilt. And then he won a 5-set final, a 5-set major final in January. And I get what kind of physical state Medvedev was in there, but still, those two things made it so that it's, okay, maybe Sinner is where he needs to be physically. I think after this match, realistically, Jannik is back in the doghouse. He's back in the prove-it zone in terms of best-of-5-set physicality. The other thing that we've seen in his last 2 losses, Alcaraz, Roland Garros, Medvedev here, he can still revert at times. relapse, if you will, to the uncreative linear power game that gives opponents chances to get comfortable. There is nothing wrong with Sinner playing with a lack of inventiveness, a lack of creative point construction. He can get away with that against the vast, vast majority. I might say he can get away with that against 98% of the field. But against the very best, you have to be disruptive. You have to be creative in a way where you're unpredictable. You're putting them in difficult positions. And I felt in his last two losses, there have been times where Sinner has looked like he's not, there aren't any ideas coming to him. The way he's going about his tennis was very one note, a little bit one speed, predictable, linear. These are the ways that I would describe it. Which again, he has worked very hard on the skills required to break out of that game. But sometimes he reverts to not using those things. Then the last thing, go at his forehand with quality. Medvedev did that really well in this match. Alcaraz exploited his running forehand, which didn't look good in the Roland Garros match. Big picture, overall, the forehand consistency from Sinner, it's not bad, I wouldn't say, but it's come back down to earth. That was another thing that was a concern for Jannik for years and years and years, where, okay, that's a forehand that it's big, but it can be a bit of a loose cannon. It can spray on him. It can rebel against him. He can beat himself at times with his forehand. We didn't see that for 6 months. I don't want to act like his forehand was a mess in this match, that it was all over the joint or spraying all over the lot. It wasn't like that. But at the highest of levels, it seems the forehand consistency is still an area where Sinner can be attacked. It was always going to happen. Sinner was going to take some losses, and we were kind of going to see where Jannik had room or has room to improve. And that time has come. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.